Hi guys, welcome to this episode of the Journey of a Grassroots Rugby Coach. More tracksuits, less business suits. In today's episode, I spoke to Darragh Coyle from Dublin in Ireland. We spoke about all things rugby, how he transitioned at a young age from playing to coaching, the development he does with the Lienster Academy, and also with the school that he does. He talked about coaching philosophies, getting advice from mentors, and a whole heap of other things. I took a lot away from it. I hope you do too. Yes, this episode was recorded a few weeks ago. Okay, I've been editing it and doing a few things to it, hence the difference in what I'm wearing and the facial hair. But that's how things work these days. We get the interviews when we can, and then we post them up so we don't bombard people. But I hope you enjoyed it. Feel free to subscribe to my channel, hit the bell so you get the updates when they come through. Listen to all my pods. There's a few there that aren't on YouTube yet. Hopefully I'll get them all on YouTube at some point. But thanks for listening. Thanks for watching if you're watching. Thanks for listening if you're on the podcast. Thanks for your support. Hope you get something out of it. We might make a start if we're good to go. So just for the listeners, mate, if you want to give us 30 seconds of who you are, where you are, and what sort of coaching that you're involved in at the moment.
Yeah, so guys, my name is Darragh Coyle. I'm a coach from Dublin, Ireland, and that's where I currently am at the moment. We're on a break from school, but I spend a lot of my time out in the UK, in sunny Yorkshire, coaching at a school called Bradford Grammar School. And I'm pretty well spread throughout all the various year groups there, which is great. Also spend a bit of time coaching in the regional academy, the Yorkshire Rugby Academy, working with their under-15s development squad, and recently was involved in their under-17s development squad as well. And now I'm back for the summer, and while I'm back here, I can't stop working. It's fantastic. So I'm involved in a few some of the camps that Leinster Rugby run around here during the summer, which is fantastic because for guys over in Ireland, it's their first time really involved in rugby in a year and a half. So, you know, to have the opportunity to be on pitch with those guys for the first time, it's amazing. So that's just where I am at the minute. I'm going to be over and back a fair bit next year, so I'm looking forward to all the change, the movement, the action, because it's going to be a bit different to what we've had for the last 18 months, as I'm sure you know. So yeah, very much looking forward to it.
So you guys in the northern hemisphere have just come, like in the UK, you guys are just coming out of lockdown. Is that right?
Yeah. So they've ended all restrictions now in the UK as of mid-July, and there's still a few here in Ireland, so we're still a little bit tighter on it. But both are looking in good shape for fingers crossed a full season resumption in September, October. So touch wood.
Oh, there'll be some boys champing at the bit to get into that too, mate. I can tell you. After last year here, I think we had 3 pre-seasons and didn't get a game in. It was just like, oh. So yeah, we know exactly what you're going through, mate. So, but it's good to get back out on the paddock and getting those guys moving. So how did you get into coaching in the first place, mate?
Yeah, I suppose it's a little bit unusual from the normal line of I kind of just fell into it after a playing career, because being perfectly honest, it was something I always wanted to do. I was really lucky at a young age to have a mentor, a teacher at the time in primary school, who invested a lot of time in me, in my physical health, my mental health. And that idea straight away of helping people and using exercise as a vehicle to do that was something that always appealed to me. And then from there, I kind of worked as a bit of a domino effect. I remember being in secondary school and having coaches come in who had just recently left school and thinking, wow, that's a pretty cool way to earn a living. I was really ignorant as to what they were earning at the time, but I still, all the same, I thought that what a great thing to be able to do with your time and get paid for it. So, but I suppose the reality, it came from the fact that I wasn't a good enough player. So I had aspirations, like every young boy does, I think, of playing for in this part of the world, Leinster Rugby and Ireland. And a lot of people realized that wasn't going to happen before me, but I was pretty sure it was going to happen for a long time. Once you do realize it's not going to happen and you're not getting selected for teams, I think you can do two things. You can be disappointed and take that rejection, or you can take that self-belief, harness it, and try to put it into something bigger. And so what I did is I spent a lot of time studying the game. I spent a lot of time watching rugby, engaging with coaches as much as I could. And it probably gave me a deeper understanding of the game than my years would have otherwise, I suppose, entitled me to. And ultimately, when it got to that level where I had played to a much higher level than I ever thought, than others thought I might have, I still didn't get to as far as I wanted to. So I thought, well, if I can't do this as a player, what's next? And for me, that was coaching. And even when you make that call, you'll know yourself. There's no real pathway in coaching for to the very top, to professionalism. And so it's where do you start? And I was very, very lucky when I started in university to meet a great man, Charlie Dole, a great rugby man, who gave me my first opportunity in his school at St Andrews College, and had 4 wonderful years there. Working with their under 13s for 2 years, and then the second 2 years with their senior team as a forwards coach. And just the apprenticeship that was for me in terms of, how you work with people, how your coaching becomes intentional. So many unbelievable lessons learned from that about myself. What I, more to the point, what I didn't like, because I think when you start coaching and people start asking you, what's your coaching philosophy? I think that's it's a head wrecker of a question, right? Because what do I know? I've only just come out here a few weeks. So to pretty much start by saying, right, well, what am I doing that I definitely don't like about the way I'm coaching? And stripping it back like that was definitely an easier process. I still don't think I'm at the point where I have a complete understanding of what my coaching philosophy is, but layering it back, week after week initially, and then slowly after that, month after month, just deciding, well, this is a general way of where I want to go, and it may not be right, but it's okay to fail with it. It's okay to play around with it, and in the pursuit of getting it right. So that's, I suppose, a long-winded answer to your question of how I kind of intentionally pursued coaching as opposed to fell into it.
Yeah, no, that's really good, Darragh, because like you said, a lot of guys just, they finish playing or they start coaching because their kids play, or, so that's really interesting how you've gone that other pathway. And I'm sure there's coaches out there that have got that similar mindset of, well, I was, I'm not going to make it as a player to where I want to be, so what's my next step? So that's really good. So I just want to touch on the bit you brought up there about your coaching philosophy. And I was like you, when I probably coached for a good 7 or 8 years before someone actually said to me, what's your coaching philosophy? And I just went, I don't know. Like, I didn't know. So, and it can be quite daunting for young coaches to go, oh shit, well, what do I believe in as a coach? How am I going to coach? So, what are some of the things that have driven your thoughts around your philosophy? Because I know mine, I've got a few things that I always try and do, but my philosophy may change as well, depending on and sometimes it depends on the team that I'm coaching as well.
Yeah, I think it's a question that can make you feel really insecure about yourself, right? Because you're kind of in an environment where you think you know a little bit about what you're doing, but at the same time you're so raw at what you're doing, and so somebody comes at you with that question, and it's like, wow, is that an answer I'm supposed to know? Is that a question I'm supposed to know the answer to? And if I am, I don't, so I'm worried about it, and I need to start working on it. And even now it's evolving, it's changing. And I think you're right. It changes. It's dictated by your environment. So at the grassroots where I'm coaching now, for me, a philosophy revolves around making sure that when people reflect on their week, when people reflect on their month, their year, that rugby is the first thing they think of. That's what I really ultimately try to achieve. School can be tough, home life can be tough, work
Yeah.
can be tough. Rugby shouldn't be tough. Rugby at this level should be something that every person looks forward to. It's club footy, it's school footy. This isn't something that should be a stress on people's lives. So if it's not a stress, it's a good thing. If it's a good thing, let's make it the best thing. Um, let's try to maximize every bit of potential out of ourselves that we can. But grassroots players think differently. It's not the professional game. This isn't a fully committed group of people who can put everything to the side for you. So it's a case of working with them, connecting with them, and giving them the best possible experience they have. And I want to be in a position where if I see these guys 10, 20 years down the line, I would love them to say, mate, my best years in school were when we were on the pitch. And it doesn't have to be with me. If I'm a head coach, an assistant coach, I just want the environment I've been involved in to contribute to what these guys, the way they're thinking, the way they look back with fond memories. I think if we could achieve that, that's incredible. And that's not an ego thing as a coach. That's just really loving the fact that people got something out of it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I agree. Like, especially at the grassroots and the junior grassroots level, I think a lot of coaches forget it's a game. It's supposed to be fun.
Yeah.
And that's why I think like my philosophy changes if I'm coaching a junior team as opposed to a senior team, or if I'm coaching a representative team rather than a grassroots junior team. Because, if you're coaching like an under 14s local footy team, it's fun. Make it fun. But then once you sort of go into that representative thing, you still want it to be fun, but there's other factors at play. So yeah, that's pretty awesome. That it's quite difficult philosophy. And I remember, well, about 3 or 4 years ago, I was in New Zealand on a course, and Murray Mexted, he just said to me, "Why do you coach?" And I went, I knew what I wanted to, but it was that shit. What do I say? Am I saying the right thing? Am I not saying that? So yeah, and that's when I sort of sat back and go, well, up until then, I probably didn't even have a coaching philosophy. It was just like, oh, let's just go out and just play some footy, but breaking it right down. And I think too, if you have that philosophy, it helps you when things get tough. I mean, like for us, it's probably like for us in July here, it can be cold and wet and horrible. And if you go back to what your coaching philosophy is, you're going to get the kids there. So if it's a local thing, for me, if it's local kids, grassroots, it's fun. So when it's, cold and the weather's miserable, they actually want to turn up because it's fun rather than anything else. So no, that's really good, mate. Yeah,
I think it's just got to be a clear reference point as well, right? So even as you say that, I'm thinking, right, so I've said there that I want my coaching philosophy to reflect the happiest days of these kids' lives. I'm thinking, right, well, that's too broad, because if it's a reference point, I've got to be able to articulate it in a way that, we can say, what does that look like? And so now this is where you get into the whole behavior side of it, where it's like, right, well, what do I as a coach look like in that environment that drives that environment? What are the coaches around me, the coaches I work under, what do they look like? What do the players look like? And how do we facilitate an environment that gets them to that level, that gets us to that level? It seems a crazy thing to start to do with 15, 16-year-olds, but I think when you get it right, and you say at the junior end as well, I've been lucky enough to coach that level as well, and when you get it right, it's a special thing.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And it's also can be quite difficult when because there's always more than one coach. So the head coach and the backs coach and the forwards coach, or whatever your setup is, do you all have the same philosophy? Or if not, how do they work together to get the best result? And it's just, sometimes you get put in a position where, there's going to be clashes because that's human nature. So having those philosophies sort of help you go, well, this is actually what I'm not going to agree with you, but because this is what my philosophy is. But how do we make my philosophy and your philosophy work together?
Yeah, I think the big thing there is making sure that if there is a discrepancy, if there is a difference in a point of opinion, which there's bound to be, like you say, the big thing is that the players don't see it, right? So you
Yeah,
just got to make
absolutely.
sure that whatever problems you have, whatever disagreements you have, they stay in the meeting room. And I've made that mistake once before where we took something out to a rugby pitch, or took it outside a meeting room into a forum where it wasn't for, and that's when we have a problem, because we've taken it into an environment where it doesn't need to be, where it's not conducive to be. And I had to put my hands up on that one, and similarly I've seen it the other way around as well. So you've got to go back to who it's all for, and it's all for the players. And you disagreeing where the players can see it, that's not helpful. When you leave that meeting room, or the cafe, or wherever you ultimately have your discussions, you've got to make sure that when you get out to that pitch, no matter what way you've decided to go, you're all buying into it.
Yeah,
Because as soon as the
absolutely.
players see it falling apart, that's it, that's finished. So
Yeah.
that's an absolutely huge thing. You're dead right.
Yeah, no, and that's good insight, mate. Like you said, there's those times where, yeah, we don't agree, but we agree not to we agree to disagree, but we've got to put on a united front for the players. Yeah, no, that's there'll be guys get some real gold out of that, mate. So thank you. So what's been one of your biggest heartaches or heartbreaks or disappointments as a coach, if you've had one?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a good question. I think when you're at the grassroots level, as we just said, like sometimes you have to manage expectations, and people are going to have, it's going to mean different things to different people, right? So what it means in your head, for me, I go out because it's my job, and I love it, and I take it quite seriously in sense of my preparation, etc. And I think you just have to be prepared for the fact that your expectations sometimes aren't going to be met, and the preparation you do, it's not going to be the right time. I remember I think we'd lost a big enough league game with one of the school sides, and just the way we played, it wasn't reflective of the way we prepared. Our response to adversity wasn't what we talked about. And I went home just speaking with my dad, who probably was one of the best coaches I ever had, especially growing up as a young boy. And he's quite a good sounding board for me. And I just said, Dad, like, I don't know what to do. I said, I feel like I'm having to motivate these kids, and I feel like I want it more than them. And I just don't think that's right. I'm not sure this is a good match. And Dad was great. He just sort of says, this isn't professional rugby. He's like, you don't get to decide that it's not a good fit. You're working with a school side. You're working with young people who go through all kinds of emotions, and you need to be the one that's not necessarily changing, but is more adaptable. And the best way he put it was, you're not responsible for motivating people, but you are responsible for inspiring them in the way you behave. And you need to look at yourself now and think, are you behaving in a way that is becoming of a coach who's developing players in the right way? And the truth is, I wasn't. I was kind of sulking at the way something didn't go the way I wanted it to go. So it was a really disappointing moment, because it's when I've probably felt the most emotionally out of control as a coach. But it was also a light bulb moment as well, to say, well, actually, if they've gone out there and played that way, is that reflective of their preparation, or is it a reflective of my preparation? And I don't know the answer, but I better try to look to it myself, because that's the only thing I can really change. So yeah, grateful for having the moment. Disappointing at the time, but a huge reflective moment for me that's probably changed the way I look at myself when I coach and reflect on my practice.
Yeah, that was awesome. Not that you had to go through that, but the fact that it happened, and like you said, it happened, but you took so much away from that experience, and that's that growth that we need as young coaches, especially because, as we know, we don't get it right every week. We get it probably in the early days. You get it wrong more than you get it right.
I'm glad you say the early days. I'm looking forward to that changing.
Well, so we'll flip that on its head, mate. What's some of the greatest moments you've had as a coach?
Yeah, good question. Very good question. I'm not sure I've had necessarily a great moment. Nothing necessarily stands out, but I think when you're working at the grassroots level, obviously it's great seeing you're going to have the players, the things come naturally to you, and that's great. And you're going to have great wins, and that's great. But you remember why you get into the game in the first place for, and you're coaching people to be better rugby players. And so the real wins for someone like that, for somebody who looks at the game that way, is when you're getting a guy who comes out who doesn't have a lot of natural ability, who comes out and tries their hardest every week. Because I can relate to that as a player. I wasn't the first name on a team sheet, and that relatability for me is seeing a guy who's so resilient, determined, takes the fact he's not selected but keeps coming out, takes the fact that some of the guys give him a bit of grief, but he still comes out, tries his hardest, and then you see it come off. And be it a training session, be it a game, whatever level it is, it's just like, yeah, he won it. Big clap, big high five, pat on the back. I'm excited for you that you got that right today. And they're huge moments, and a few players come to mind when I think of that in the school and even in the academy, guys who make that step up and aren't quite there, but God, when they get it right, it's just that 2 minutes of elation. Like, wow, that was an incredible moment. And they're the images that stand out.
Yeah, and I've had a couple like that, and there was one in particular, and it unfolded in front of me. This kid was just trying to do something so bad that when he got it, when I watched him do it, I was watching it in slow motion. I was just going, he's got it. He's not like, you could see what the effort he put in those weeks prior, and then all of a sudden it's just like watching that thing in slow motion just open out in front of you. So there's some good highlights there, especially around coaching the kids, which I think again a lot of newer coaches don't take the time to appreciate that as a coach. Like, yeah, the kid did really well, but he didn't do it on his own either. He's done it because, you've helped him, you've inspired him. You might have given him 30 seconds extra on a practice drill than you did someone else. And then, you give yourself credit for those moments as well.
Yeah, I think it's really important to remember exactly right how that moment came to be. Because you as a coach, you want to remember that, right? I mean, you want as many moments like that as you can have on a rugby pitch. So it's like, great, what went into that? And try to think back. If it was a 3-month process, if it was a 6-month process, go back to the work that went into it. What did you invest in them? What did you see investing in themselves? At what point did understanding just click? Because the action's the action. That'll come eventually. But what actually went into it? At what point did this player grasp, oh, this is how I do it. This is what I have to do. I'm not just saying it because I want to give you the right answer. I'm saying it because I now have a full grasp of exactly what went into it. And so, yeah, I'm a big believer in try to write those things down, because if you get a golden nugget like that, great, let's get 5 next season. Let's get 10 the season after that. And try to get good moments outweighing the bad ones, ideally.
Yeah, nice, really good. So we'll probably stretch on some of that stuff we've just talked about. So what are some of the lessons that you've learned during your coaching journey?
I think it's really important to be self-aware of your behaviors. Like, I was talking about this with one of my mates last week, and he was doing a bit of coaching himself. I'm trying to get him back into it. He's really, really good. But the idea that young people especially are so easily influenced. Everything you say, everything you do, as a leader, as a coach, you can affect someone in a positive way and you can affect someone in a negative way, and you can do it without knowing it. So being really self-aware of what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, what your personality type is, what you at your best looks like, what you at your worst looks like, and having ways of dealing with it. Making sure that you're saying to your coaching team before a session, I'm having a bad day today. If we have an issue, I need somebody else to go and sort that. If you're having a good day, making sure that you're the biggest personality in the room to try to lift other people to do it. So your body language, your energy levels, all these things, I think you need to be really aware of, because as soon as kids will pick up on it, they look up to you as a coach, particularly at that young age, and at an older level as well. You're the person that's kind of seen them through a journey. And more importantly, they think they know where they lie with you. So if they've seen you in a certain way and you suddenly flip a switch, it's like, well, that's not an agreed behavior, or it's an unusual behavior, and they don't know how to act around you. And as well, when players get nervous around you, they stop expressing themselves and they start going into their shell. And I don't think any coach has the right to do that. I think if you're gonna take the responsibility of going out in a rugby field, your responsibility is to the players. So being really self-aware of who you are and where you are on that given day and that given moment, I think that's crucial. That's the one thing I'm still I think we all still work on. I'm definitely still working on it because I'm a young man. I still haven't really sure what me at my best looks like yet. So it's a development process, but I think when you nail it, I think it sparks that development point and it accelerates it tenfold because players know where they stand with you.
Yeah, and I think it's good, like when you said there about some days you have that bad day, and especially like I've found coaching senior rugby, you got guys at work, they might have been on the tools all day and their back hurts, or they've got an asshole of a boss who's giving them a hard time, and they're actually coming to rugby as an escape, like just to blow off some steam. And I've often found a couple of times I've been in that spot and I'll just go, guys, I'm just not having a good day today. I'm going to do my best, but we're all human, blah blah. And I've actually then had a couple of the guys later on just come, look, I've just I've been working some long days, I've got some stuff going on at home, I'm just not feeling it today, but I'll give you what I've got. So it sort of gives you that bit of clarity, I suppose, with the boys. Like, mate, we're all human. We're not professional rugby players. We've got lives, we've got things, we've got family, we've got jobs. Some days we have bad days. And I think from my experience, if a coach can just, it's not an excuse, but it's just, yeah, guys, I've got a couple of things going on in the background, nothing to do with you guys, but if I'm a bit snappy or I'm a bit off today, and it just gives them that little bit of, like you said, you might have come out with something and they go, oh shit, what's all that about? That's not how he usually behaves. Oh, hang on, he did tell us he's got some stuff going on. So that's really good good point to bring up, and probably something that as young coaches need to be really aware of, that where they are when they're coaching. Yeah,
I think as well, as a young coach, you make so many mistakes, and the thing is, you get to a point then when you start making mistakes initially in your coaching career and you don't know they're mistakes. Somebody has to tell you, okay, look, what you did there, not great, whatever it may be. You then get to a point where you're still making mistakes, but you're like, in the moment, I know I made that mistake, I know what happened there. You have to be able to adapt to that, and you have to be able to coach in the moment. And that's happened. We're not looking in the rearview mirror. We're getting on with the next job, but just be, again, very aware of what the mistake was so it doesn't happen again. And I think you're right. I think when you start communicating that message, you create a certain connection with your players, or you certainly go to a different level with your players and your other coaches, where now we're at a real interpersonal thing of, is everything okay? We can pull someone aside if a player says it to us. Now we then lead the example to the player by him coming to us and saying, I'm having a bad day at home, I don't really want to talk about it, but I'm just letting you know in case I'm a bit off today. And it opens that door for you to do the other great part of coaching, which is getting to know people and just extending the arm and saying, is everything all right? And they'll do what they want, but the fact that you've reached out and you've shown interest and you've put yourself out there as being a sounding board for it, that really helps develop connections, develop relationships, which down the line, it obviously serves you as a coach really well, but it goes beyond rugby. It serves you really well as a human being, and it looks great for them to know that I have somebody who I can talk to about this, or at least is willing to listen, even if they can't say anything that's going to help. Yeah,
no, that's really good, mate. That's a good point to make, that getting those connections with the players just stops some shitty moments as well sometimes. So just having a think about some of the stuff that you're involved with, like with the schools and the academies at the moment, that where you are. How do you think us as coaches can improve the game?
Yeah, the 64th million
Oh,
dollar
oh,
question.
absolutely, mate. And the reason I asked this, and you probably won't have any context around it, but over here we have Australian rules football, and their grassroots to professional format is all grassroots here, and then it triangles up to the professional game, where rugby in Australia, I think we flipped it. Everything was about the professional game, and then it tapers down into the grassroots.
Yeah.
So I don't know what it's like over there, like with that grassroots stuff, and how do we change or influence the game? Is probably better. How do we influence the game as coaches at the grassroots level?
Yeah, I think we've got to get much better at developing decision makers. We've got to get much better at that. I think decision makers on the pitch, decision makers under pressure, and just decision makers about the day-to-day running of the team. I think we're in an environment sometimes where players are afraid to speak up when in fact it's their team. So we're just there to facilitate the environment. We're there to really hold standards, hold agreed standards that we set at the start of the season. At the younger end, it's a bit different. We are there to give a bit more direction and introduce fundamental principles of the game. But generally, the level I'm working at, I'm there just to hold up the standards and make sure that they're still heading on the right direction that we agreed at the start of the season. But what I'm finding is that the whole guided discovery approach, which is kind of let the players figure it out for themselves and point them in a slight direction, I think we've taken that and we've gone too far with it. And I think guided discovery is correct, but I think there is a real misinterpretation of what that actually means. And one of the big things around here is just the use of open questions. So, saying to players, oh, what did we think of how that set ran, or what were a couple of things we could have done differently? And the problem now is the players aren't dumb; they're really quite intelligent about things. It's if they give you an answer once and it's right, they'll keep giving you that answer until it's wrong, even if they don't understand it. So it becomes like a classroom situation, where you see the teacher writing something on the board and you think, oh yeah, I get that, and then you're asked to write it on paper and you can't do it. We're just getting regurgitated answers sometimes without actual understanding of what that looks like or why we've done it even. So I think we have to get much better at developing decision makers and actually provoke thought instead of provoking just an impulsive response.
Yeah,
I think you do that by, I think, just giving them opportunities to make more decisions, by letting them have more say and let them make a decision without saying it's wrong. Let them make the decision and then see how the decision goes, and let them see, oh, right, now I have a light bulb moment. Now that didn't work because of this. And I know that because I experienced it, not because somebody told me or somebody said I was right for giving them the answer they wanted to hear, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely, mate. Absolutely. And I don't know what it's like with the guys you coach, but 90% of the time when we do, half time or after a drill or something, and you say to the guys, so what can we do better? Comms, our comms can be better. As soon as you say to them, what do you mean by comms? I don't know, but that was the right answer last time. And comms is just that word that everyone uses when they don't know. Oh, our comms can be better. Yep. But what do you mean by better? And what do you mean by comms? And then they just got to start thinking, oh, so talk, like not actually just talking to people, but, what's happening? What do you want me to do? What's that person? Where do you want that person to be? All that type of stuff. But yeah, you're right. People, they know, they get the answer right once and they just keep parroting it back to you, but they don't actually know what the answer means.
Exactly. It's so much easier when players just learn from each other. It's easier because they really resonate with each other. You're a coach, but you're somewhat a teacher in their eyes, and they'll give you what you want to hear. So we had a moment there last week where, exactly the way you said it, one of the, what could we have done a bit better there? Comms. Okay, right, comms. What do we mean by comms? And it was kind of like, it was almost just like parrots. They were saying, oh, but comms, and it's like, you need to give me more than that. So we try to put them in a scenario then in a little drill-based small-sided game where the only way you could be successful was with comms. We just manipulated the scoring of I'm the coach. If I don't hear this, you're going to lose X amount of points, or whatever way. You can go different ways with it. And some players got it, and that was great. And about 70% of the guys didn't. But what we did see was 30% of guys who did started to take control of it then. So I could take a step back, and I wasn't asking a question anymore. And instead it was the players. And they're way more comfortable with each other than they are with me. In this particular context, it was a camp. So I know these guys 3 days. So we only have time to build a certain familiarity, comfortability, whereas the players were much more familiar with each other. And it was great that, okay, only 30% of people have come away with a full understanding here, but at least now they're leading that change, and it's transformational, and people are seeing it from that perspective, and developing a different way to just, as you say, giving me the answer because, well, it's the right answer, so we better just say it, even though if we don't fully resonate with it.
Yeah, exactly. So when you're questioning after, like, you do a drill, and so we usually do a drill, and if it's over a 10-minute block, I usually try and break it about 4 minutes and just have 30 seconds, bang, just to readjust and realign everything. Or if it's just a 2 or 3 minute drill, take 30 seconds at the end just to go a bit of a recap. How do you work that questioning into like a skill set, a catch pass session?
Difficult again, right? Because you've gone in there with your kind of maybe 2 or 3 key messages at whatever age level it is for what you're looking for from a catch pass, and it's not really quite working. So I prefer, I'm poor at the open questions, I can't lie about that. I'm really working around what a good question looks like, right? The one that gets people thinking. So I'm a big one for the visual demonstrations, and I'll probably show someone the way it does look by getting somebody it's come quite naturally to. And then it's difficult working with kids because you can't embarrass them. You can't, try to make someone out to look bad. So it's just a case of saying, right, can somebody who was maybe struggling with it come up here and just show me how they do it, and we'll see if we can, tweak 1 or 2 things there. And you put it out to the group then saying, right, what are you seeing, instead of giving me what I want to hear? What are we actually seeing? What's 1 point we can definitely fix here? And that promotes, I've found that promotes a little bit of thought, but still not there yet. It's not where I need it to be. So yeah, there's a lot of that's an area for me I've got to get a lot better at. And it seems that even 18 months of lockdown, we're not there yet. But I hopefully don't need another 18 months. But I'll have to just go on the bounce for now. I don't know if you have any ideas around that, mate.
Yeah, and again, it's difficult. Of course, some people will get it. Some of the stuff I do, so if I'm doing a line out session, I'll just say to the guys, is that what we want to achieve? And if we've had a really terrible session, I'll go, is that the standard you guys want to play on the weekend? If it is, good. If it's not, fix it, because I'm not on the field on Saturday. Got 30 seconds, go. And then they'll go off, and like you said, because now I'm not involved in that discussion, because they know the group better than I do, and they'll have and you can hear them talking, and you go, right, let's go, bang. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. Using a player that can do the skill sometimes works, but then again, you might say to him, so he might be able to do the skill but can't explain how he does the skill. So yeah, it can be quite difficult to get that. Some of the stuff I do is just give them like the key points, catch early, cross the body, fingers to target. And then when they're running through what they're doing, I might just pull a guy out and just go, mate, just make sure, just pick one thing, bang, that's all I want you to do. Just work on that. And again, that works for some and not for everybody. It's about trying to work out what's best. And are you catering for the whole? You can't cater for the whole group, because they all, there's so many different types of learning. So who knows? You've got to work out what's going to be best for the group, and then you may have to do a little, 5 seconds during the actual activity on, I want you to do this, or I want you to do that, or whatever it is. That's some of the stuff that I've found.
I think it's an interesting one as well. You've just touched on there, like kids learn different ways, people learn different ways.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter what age group you're coaching at, and there's something to be said for getting to know those players to the point where, right, I know this person will learn best from seeing something on an iPad. I know they'll learn best from having a one-to-one sit down. I know they'll learn best by just having a quick comment on the pitch. I think the more you know about the players and how they respond to those things, the better. And that's it's easy to do, and it can be hard to make the time for. I mean, grassroots rugby, I mean, with the club I was coaching last year, it was one of the club I played for. I was coaching two of the junior teams there, and it's like, wow, we have these guys for 90 minutes a day, Tuesday, Thursday. Where do you get the time to actually sit down with these guys and get to know them a bit? And what you actually realize is in that 90 minutes, right, we're actually on pitch for 70 minutes of that. So they get there for 10 minutes beforehand, maybe, if we're lucky, if they're coming from work. And you're fully you're trying to make the most of those walks back to the car, or when they're tying their boots on the sideline. And if you can use that time, that's your little nugget. I mean, the way I kind of, one of the things I was writing recently, I sort of said, if you only have 30 seconds with a player, how are you going to make it the best 30 seconds for you and for that player? And by getting to know them a little bit, getting to know it in a rugby and not a rugby context, even a work context, what does this person not like about their boss? What do they respond to? What do they really like about them? That's something we can actually take a lot from. I think if we start actually looking at teachers and leadership and businesses in terms of how they operate from the top down, not the bottom up, there's a lot to be learned there for us in terms of how we go about connecting with our players to promote that learning response in any context.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like you said, it's just finding that 30 seconds with that player and having that connection with them, which again can be difficult as well when you've got 30 seconds with a player, possibly in a 5-minute window, and you've got 25 players. Yeah, so it's
and they don't always go the way you want. It's often head in the hand moment of, oh, what have I just done? Because you go out with this great idea of what that conversation looks like, two people walking nostalgically onto the rugby pitch, when in reality, if you catch a guy on a bad day, it's like, oh mate, how's your day going? And all you get is shit, and then they just run away from you. It's like, oh, what's just happened there? So yeah, you got to take the good with the bad with these things. There's no point pretending you get it right every time.
Yeah, or that conversation you have when you've got to drop a player, and you always envisage in your head that it's just going to be, oh, I'm going to tell him what he needs to work on and he'll be fine. And you start the conversation, he just goes, mate, you can piss right off. Oh, boy. And it may be because he's had a bad day. There's all this other stuff going on.
Yeah.
You just go, oh, yeah, what do I say now? Like, and I don't want to, be condescending, or I don't want to, it's like we're psychologists sometimes, I think.
I tell you, we go through the mill, don't we?
Yeah. So how do you keep your training environment enjoyable for your athletes? Because I'm pretty much assuming a lot of the stuff you do over there in the winter is the weather's not the best.
No.
So how do you, especially at the junior level, like that, where the kids can go, you know what, I'm going to stay at home today.
I think it's about trying to think of the exact right wording here, but people want to feel valued, right, in anything they do. Yeah. Be it rugby, be it school, be it home life. They want to feel as though they're adding something, and they want to see that it's being valued as well by the people at the top. And I was having a conversation about this with a coach recently. If you can make somebody feel really good in your environment, it's like, well, there may be bad days. There may be days where that player isn't selected. They're not getting on the team they want to get to. But they ultimately have to ask themselves a question at grassroots. It's like, I could go somewhere else and I could play first team footy and I could be the first name on a team sheet. But why would I leave here? when ultimately day to day, I love being here. I love being in this environment. I get on with everyone. There's full transparency. The relationships with the people are great. And okay, I'm having a bad day because I haven't got what I wanted, but I'm not going to let one moment take away from this experience that I have right now, which I love. And a perfect example of it was, we were in a team meeting room, would have been a year and a half ago now, and we're there. It's a first grade video session, so we're there for that team, really to prepare them for the weekend. I think it was the seconds team. We didn't have a game, so we're there just to make sure that they're well prepared. And we've gone through the video. Everything's kind of like, we're wondering, what are we sitting here for? Was there any point in us being here? And the coach stands up at the end of the session, and he's like, boys, I just want to stress something here now. It's really, really important. I want to recognize something that was done really well at the weekend, and that's about X player who started for our senior thirds for 80 minutes on a Friday night. We had a late injury in training on Thursday. We rang him. He played 80 minutes on the Saturday for the seconds. And that's what we're about around here. That's the commitment we're looking for in this club. And this is a player who again, would have been scrapping for his place in the seconds, but that moment where everyone's looking at him and giving him a little round of applause in a non-condescending way, in a really we appreciate you mate kind of way.
Yep.
And it's like, well, that's 30 seconds that you're looking back on and thinking, what a club, like what a place to be. And yeah, as you say, wind, rain, snow, hailstone, it's like the more of those moments you get, that's incredible. And there comes a point where there's too many of them, and it's like, well, what does it mean anymore? Maybe this is just routine. So you've got to get a balance right of you're actually recognizing it because it's happened, not because you need to find a moment to recognize. But I just feel like if you can make someone feel like they're on cloud nine, why would you go anywhere else? And that certainly resonates with me as well. When I was playing at the club, it's like, I'm not getting where I want. I'm not playing on the team I want to play on, that's for sure. Or I'm not I'm not playing at the level I would like to be playing at the high end. But I know I'm valued in this team. I know that, the coaches respect my input, and that's a powerful thing. And it's one where you have to consider, is it worth playing every week but not enjoying it as much, as opposed to loving coming out in the wind and rain? Because something has to bring you out in the wind and rain. And ultimately, the win on Saturday will come, and you can convince yourself that'll come whether I'm here or not. So I'll just text in that I'm not feeling too good today. That can happen. They have the opportunity to do that. If we can make it a situation where people think, oh, can't wait for training tonight, it's raining out, who cares, we're all gonna have a great time. That's where you get your gold in your player development, and in your personal development. So that's one little example, I suppose, of just how you make people feel good.
And you're right. So because that third grader could have quite easily sent you a message on Saturday morning going, oh look, I got a bit of a knock last night, I just want to rest it up, or 3 or 4 other excuses why he couldn't play because he just didn't feel like it. But yeah, they front up, and sometimes it's that putting your arm around the guy and just giving him that appreciative nod that he's actually contributing to something bigger.
It's recognizing it before and after. I mean, as you say, that arm around the shoulder saying, mate, I know you put in a shift yesterday. I know you're probably hurting. We need you today, mate. We need a big day from you. And it's like, well, that's empowering. That's uplifting. Now I'm ready to fight for this team. And then again, it's recognizing it afterwards. So he got recognized in the changing room after the game. Just again, the coach saying, it's a great win today, boys, but let's remember the contribution from X. Round of applause. And then it's remembered. It's like, right, on our review of that weekend, performance was great. I'll tell you what else was great, the attitude of this player. And it's again that recognition of, all right, this isn't just something that was a one-time thing. I'm now valued in this group. People now know a bit about the person I am. I'm a person that this club wants to be associated with. And that then drives week after week after week.
Oh, absolutely. No, that's good. That's some good insight, especially like you said, around that cold, where there's 100 other things you could be doing. But you don't. You turn up and you go to rugby training. So I want to talk about coach development as opposed to coach education. So the way I see it is that Rugby Australia and World Rugby and all these places have courses that we go and do as we progress through. And we go, and it might be, 2 days, 3 days, whatever the course is. And that's coach education. But coach development is that other side. That's the stuff where, especially recently, there's these Zoom calls and WhatsApp groups and webinars and all this type of stuff. So what would your advice be to young coaches or coaches just starting out around development, like coach development rather than coach education?
Yeah. I think that's a great point you make. I mean, development is the broader term, isn't it? So education is just one part of it, but there's so much more that goes into it. And the first thing I would say to anyone starting out in coaching is be curious. Be really, really curious. Seek out any nugget of advice you can, because it won't necessarily resonate with you as that's what I'm going to do. But better yet, it might say, that's the idea. How can I manipulate that idea? What do I like about the idea? What do I not like about the idea? And how can I bring a new idea to life from that? So, right, that's the ideal situation you're going to get to. But you don't get that without asking questions. And as I was a young coach, I think the first thing I was sure of as a young coach was that I was a good coach. And I was just sure of that until I quickly found out I wasn't. And then when you find out you're not, it's like, right, well, where do I go from here? And you do it by talking to people, and you surround yourself with good people, and you also reach those people out. So lockdown affected us all in so many ways, but one of the ways that it impacted me was I was kind of like, right, I'm now in the complete opposite of where I need to be. I'm a people's person. I love being out in the rugby pitch. I love talking to people. I'm now indoors. I have no work to do. I have no deadlines to meet. It's like, well, where do I go now? And it's something that worked really well for me was I actually used the LinkedIn platform, and I just reached out to anybody who I thought had, an insight, a story to share, a bit of wisdom that they could pass on to me. And what you really quickly find about the rugby community, and you'll know this as well, is it's so open, it's so widespread, and it's so generous. And people are so giving with their time and information when that's all you're looking for is their time. You're not texting people saying, mate, do you have a job for me down the line? It's just saying, mate, sorry to bother you. I hope you don't mind me messaging you directly. I'm a young coach from Dublin, Ireland. You give that whole long-winded spiel, and you ultimately get to the crux of the point, which is hoping you can maybe give me some insights in this area. And I was overwhelmed with the response, and it's like, it's incredible. Speaking to so many people, you're like, I couldn't even dream of meeting this person, and now I'm one-to-one on them with the computer. People saying, oh, look, mate, that's a pretty long-winded question to answer. How about we get a Zoom going? And all of a sudden, 5 minutes you wanted from a little type now becomes a one-on-one Zoom session. It's like, wow, you're almost overawed with it. So be curious. The worst somebody can say is no. The worst somebody can say is, I'm not going to help you. But the best that comes out of it is that you become a much better coach for having that conversation. And, I'm the kind of guy who will now send 100 emails knowing that 99 of them are going to annoy people and piss them off. But that one person might reply who thinks, I like this young coach's ambition to reach out and seek out information. I'm going to put the time into him. And if it's only 1 out of 100, that was worth doing. I think then as well, moving away slightly from the curiosity point, I think you develop by knowing who you are as a coach and what you're doing as a coach. And you can think you know what you're doing on a pitch, but I've found little things like getting a coach who's not involved with the session to watch you coach and feedback objectively into you, comparing what you look to get out of it and how you wanted to behave versus how you did. And that's something that it can hit home. You've got to be in the right frame of mind to take that feedback, because it's like, I don't want you to tell me I'm doing really, really well. I want you to tell me that I said I wanted to do this, and ultimately I did this. There was a massive disparity between the two. And one of the things we actually did last week in this camp was I was mic'd up for a session. I had a little microphone at the top. So I'm getting a recording of that at the end of the week. So I'd be really interested to just see. I know how I went into that session, wanting to say and how I wanted to behave, but it's like, oh, did I? Didn't I? So it's a good thing you got me on today, mate. If you got me later on in the week, I might be a bit, a bit out of sorts.
Yeah, I
But
just got some feedback I don't really like, so yeah, I'm not going to talk to you. Yeah, yeah.
exactly.
I sometimes wear a GoPro, and yeah, it doesn't like capture all the movement because I wear it on my chest, but it records everything I say. And sometimes you listen to it back and you go, "Oh my god, did I just say that?" Or those, I can see why that didn't work because I don't actually understand what I just said. Like, how am I expected them to, you know? But it's also about like you said, you get someone that you know well enough that's going to give you the feedback, but also being willing to take the feedback. It's all well and good when they say you're wonderful and you've met this mark and that mark, but when they go, you know what, you didn't quite hit it here, or you did, and that's that where I think, especially as a young coach, why, and I was the same. I wouldn't have gone out and got someone to come watch my session and give me some feedback because I didn't want you to tell me how shit I was.
Yeah.
Where now it's just like, yep. And I've worked with some coaches now, and we all sort of go, yeah, that didn't really work, did it? And we went, no, it didn't work. That's why we're not doing it again. But back when I was first starting out, I wouldn't have got anyone to review any of my stuff because I was just that they're going to come back and tell me that I'm hopeless, or they're going to take my accreditations off me. And because I think we get taught the tactical side of it or the technical side of it, either as a player or through coaching courses, but we don't actually get taught how to.
Yeah.
Which is, I've actually spoken to some coaches that I know that are like physical education teachers, and some of the stuff they do, but that's what they've learned at their time at universities and teachers, and you can just see they run sessions completely different because they actually know how to.
Yeah.
They might not know the what to, but they know how to.
Mm.
So yeah, just getting that feedback from them is really good.
But that's what coach development is, right? It's about learning where things have ultimately gone wrong. And it's a bit like, as you say, we're going to make loads of mistakes. I don't know what I'm doing is right, and I'm not secure in the fact in myself that I know it's right. But what I'm really confident of is that when I see it's wrong, it won't happen again. Like you just said,
Yeah.
I'm sure that I'll come up with a better solution. It may not be a great solution, but I'm sure that it'll be better than the one we just had. And that's where coach development is. It's that reflective practice of going home and saying, right, what did we do here? What was I trying to achieve? If somebody was watching me, what did they see? If nobody was watching me, but I had as you say, a GoPro or a microphone on, if you're saying to yourself, what did I mean there? As you say, well, if you don't get it, how are the players going to get it? And being okay with the fact that happens, especially as a young coach. And I need to actually get more people to watch me. I've only done it a few times this year in the school and obviously in the camps now. It's been great, but that's where you get your objective stuff. And just saying flat out, look, my expectation of you as an observer is to tell me exactly what you see objectively. Don't try to interpret it in a good way or a bad way. Just tell me what you see. I'll tell you the way I wanted to get it across. Because I think if you start telling them I want you to be honest with me, they feel a need to be critical.
Yeah.
So it's just like, just tell me what you see, and then I'll tell you what I wanted to achieve, and we'll see how big the gap is. And if it's a small gap, great, we've got a little bit of work to do. If it's a big gap, we have a lot of work to do. But just being okay with the fact that a lot of work is just part of coach development. And if we were all perfect at it, we'd all be coaching our country straight away. So,
and it'd be a pretty boring game.
100%.
Like, because every game would be the same, and you just go, oh, what's the point? Like, if you're not trying stuff, we don't progress as a game if no one's trying new stuff.
And it depends where one of our mantras is in the school is be better than yesterday. Let's be better than yesterday. Well, if we got it perfect yesterday, it's going to be pretty hard. So it's nice to have something to refer back to. It's nice to mess up in some way to know that there's something to come back to, that you utilize that work ethic mindset that you've developed to say, right, what yesterday may have gone 99% of the way we wanted, but we got 1% to go, or it might have gone 30% of the way we wanted, and we got a lot to do. And now our job is to decide, well, what do we need to prioritize? So just have something to work off. You're getting that development.
Yeah, and I like that better than yesterday. I really like that as a terminology, or a team mantra, or however a coach wants to use it. That's really good. So one last bit, mate, and then I'll let you go, because I know you've got a big day ahead of you. What advice would you give yourself when you were first starting out as a coach, knowing what you know now?
Be patient. Definitely be patient. One of the big things for me is, I think it's a bit like when you're saving money, mate, and you think that I've got this amount this month, this amount next month, I'm going to hit this goal by the end of the year. And it's very quickly you realize, I went out for a beer at the weekend, and I've got a wedding booked in 3 weeks' time, and now I'm not saving, now I'm losing money. And that's the way coaching goes as well. It's like, you're going to have good days, you're going to have bad days. You're not going to get to where you want to when you want to get to it. That's part of the fun of coaching. That's part of the whole coach development side we just talked about. Players are going to have good days, they're going to have bad days. You're going to have good days, you're going to have bad days. Take that as part of the ride, and actually use something with it, and think, well, if that's the situation, what can I control? Well, if this player's having a bad day, how cool would it be if my behavior can get their mood to change by the end of the session? And if they left the house in a huff with their wife or their mum or their dad, and they come home and it's a different person, they're coming home saying, oh, thank you so much for picking me up, or love the dinner tonight. And all of a sudden it's that little comment, that little spark that gets mum or dad or girlfriend thinking, oh, wow, that's a different human being. They were served really well by going to that rugby session. So patience is absolutely key. And the other thing I would say is, again, just going back to that curiosity point, like, just seek people out, because there's so much knowledge out there. I still haven't framed the way I necessarily see the entire game. So I'm listening to two things that are completely contradictory of each other, say, regarding a line out, and I'm thinking, I like both. I want both.
Yeah.
So that's what I would say. Be really curious, talk to as many people as you can, and then just be organic. Start to say, well, okay, with these two things, neither of them are wrong. I'm not afraid to go with one and see where it goes. This is the one I resonate with the most, and I'm going to go with that. So I think if you can be patient, be curious, and then just be decisive in whatever way you're going to go, let whether it's right or wrong be an afterthought. You can reflect and develop that, but just be decisive of, right, having done the research, this is the direction I want to go in now, and it's open to review in however many days, weeks down the line.
Nice. I like it. Thank you very much for your time, my friend. It was good to finally catch up face to face, so to speak. We've had a few chats online, been in a few different groups throughout lockdown. So I hope you have a good week with the boys out there, mate, and a good season.
Yeah, cheers,
buddy.
I love what you're doing with the analysis, and it's a great initiative you have. It's something, it's a niche, nobody else is really doing it. So I'm looking forward to following the pod and hearing some of the other insights. I'm sure there's a lot more out there than my insights. So fair play to you, mate, for setting it all up. It's gonna really serve young coaches well down the line.
Oh, thanks, Darragh. That means a lot. And mate, I'm doing it for my own interest as well. I think I've spoken about 7 or 8 people, and I've just, writing stuff down and picking stuff up. Like I said, little bits of gold. If you get a bit of gold from everyone you speak to, you got this pile that you can just then, like I said, sift through and just go, yeah, like that, go like that, blah, blah, blah. So no, I really appreciate your time, mate. Stay safe up there, mate, and have a good year.
All right, mate. You too. We'll stay in touch.
Righto, mate.